Hello, welcome to Nottingham Buddhist Centre. My name's Gareth. You're joining me for the drop-in meditation. Today we'll be doing the Metta Bhavana, the loving kindness meditation. Just going to wait a couple more minutes, see if anyone joins us. But for those of you who've not found us before, you're very welcome. If you're completely new to meditation, you might want to take a look at our series of videos that introduce the basic practices that we do here, or the fundamental practices. There's no basic practices. And you can find that in the video description underneath. There's a meditation toolkit with lots of really good resources from our teachers here at the centre, from Khemasiri and Kusala Devi in particular. There's one on there from me as well. So today we'll be looking at the loving kindness practice. The Metta Bhavana is the sort of Pali for that sort of idea. Metta meaning translating roughly as loving kindness, as opposed to sort of the English word love carries lots of other associations. So loving kindness is sort of a kind of feeling for someone which is sort of very, very generous and open-handed. There's kind of no, it's as if our feelings for others are sort of completely purified of all kind of self-reference in a way. So the sort of way I wanted to approach that today is it's something I sort of bring in occasionally when I'm leaving this practice, but just the idea that rather than us trying to force loving kindness to arise, trying to move towards that sort of trust in the fact that it is a more accurate representation of the way that things are. Dwelling on that, the awareness that loving kindness, metta, is actually, according to the Buddhist tradition, part of wisdom, part of a profound seeing into the nature of reality. In many ways, as well as being a wonderful sort of supportive practice for calming and our minds and putting us into a positive mental state, there's also something of wisdom which is sort of equivalent to metta. That's something that that Sangharakshita, the founder of this movement, Triratna, particularly sort of emphasized that metta's, that loving kindness, cultivating that as a quality, it is a really profound wisdom practice, as well as just preparation for something. Can take you all the way, as it were. And then there's lots of quotes from the Pali Canon, the sort of oldest parts of the Buddhist tradition, that sort of really support that idea. One of them that I'm sort of dwelling on at the moment is there's a particular interaction between the Buddha and Ananda, his most sort of faithful sort of follower, as it were, and also a good friend, according to, if you sort of get a sense of their friendship from the stories. There's a particular interaction between those two where Ananda says to the Buddha how important friendship is, that it's as if it were at least half of the spiritual life is sort of this quality of beautiful friendship. And the Buddha replies to him, "I say it's not so, Ananda. It's the whole of the spiritual life," which is a sort of mysterious phrase in a way. Like, what does it mean for friendship to be the whole of the spiritual life? Presumably, we do have to meditate and do all the rest of it. But I think it relates to one way of understanding what that means is that that quality of friendship, which is another way of talking about loving kindness, really goes right to the heart of what we're trying to develop when we're practicing spiritually. In fact, there's something of that which goes right to the heart of what enlightenment is ultimately. Yeah, so inevitably that there's something quite mysterious about that. But I think even in our own sort of lives, it does make us it makes sense to me, at least on a certain level, that when I'm angry with people, I'm able to my awareness becomes very narrow, and I can only sort of or irritable with them, even not even that strong a response. It's like I can only see the things that I dislike about this person, and really I can't see them very clearly in their own terms either. It's very easy to go back to the incident that you had with them that caused you to feel a certain way. Whereas comparing that to when I'm feeling much more positive, and particularly this sort of feeling of openness and warmth that sometimes arises as a result of doing this meditation, and it just feels it's like night and day, just so much clearer and just more. It's obvious that it's more true, that more rounded version of someone. It's even as if you can understand them more clearly then. Whereas when we're angry, it's as if there's that thing that you may often find yourself saying, I just don't understand. Don't understand why this person is behaving this way. And that kind of comes from, or whenever I find myself saying that, I realize I've become irritated. And it's not really about me understanding, it's a feeling, really. Whereas when it feels like I'm more steeped in that metaphor quality, that loving kindness feeling, that's understanding seems to come, or at least there's a sort of trust that other people do make sense. You may not agree with what they do. We might even think that they're really misguided in the way that they're sort of going about things. But at least there's a sort of there is a kind of trust that they're doing it for the same reasons that we do fundamentally. That, trying to avoid being in pain, trying to be happy. The only sort of real reason is anyone does anything, really. That just manifests in many different ways of greater and lesser sort of wisdom. So I'm going to be sort of bringing that emphasis in as I'm leading the meditation, but you don't need to remember all of the stages. I will be leading it as normal, and I'll say a little bit of an overview in a moment. Just an invitation to acknowledge that aspect of what we're doing, that not only are we trying to get in touch with a positive emotional state, in some ways loving kindness, as we're talking about here, is sort of more than an emotion. It's also this quality of openness and clarity of mind that's kind of emotionally available enough to see things, and particularly human beings, as they actually are, rather than being caught just in a sort of what other people might trigger in us. So that's today's theme. So we'll be doing the usual 5-stage loving kindness, cultivation of loving kindness meditation. So in the first stage, calling to mind a good friend. First stage, calling to mind ourselves. Wishing ourselves well. Second stage, calling to mind a good friend, someone that we're just pleased to see. Third stage, neutral person, someone we don't have strong feelings about one way or the other. Fourth stage, someone more difficult, someone we find a bit challenging, perhaps a bit irritating. It doesn't need to be the most difficult person in your life. And then fifth and final stage, bringing them together and then allowing well-wishing to sort of extend outwards towards everything, towards everyone. And as we're doing those stages, as that quality of well-wishing is can be as much of just about an opening to recognizing the well-wishing that's already there. That everyone we think about in one way or another will be wishing themselves well. That might even that might even be interesting to play with ourselves. As I think something that feels like a controversial statement, but I don't think it is. I would say that everyone who is not enlightened is probably doing something slightly self-destructive at some point, acting against their best interests at some time. And that's nothing to be ashamed of. It's just sort of, part of what we do. I'm sure you can think of many examples for yourself. But I know I can get caught up in that, and like the ways I sort of fall short of my ideals, or just do things that are a bit silly because I feel sort of compelled to. And sometimes that can really get in the way of just wishing myself well, connecting with the desire to be happy. But that is there. In fact, all of those things that seem to contradict that are also expressions of a desire to be happy. They're just sort of a bit more short term, just acting on relieving one particular impulse or satisfying some urge rather than what our longer term sort of aims might be. So just seeing if we can connect with that, regardless of what we've done or what we may have done, we do wish ourselves well. And that's where it all comes from, ultimately. So that's probably more than enough from me. Just going to check the audio still fine. It looks like it is. Okay. Right, so if you want to settle into your meditation posture, if you're not already in it, I'll do the same now. Just taking a moment or two to come into our bodies a bit more. Set aside whatever we've been preoccupied with, whatever we've been thinking about already today. Noticing the physical sensations in our bodies. And we're rooting down to the ground, feeling that sense of stability, whether you're on a chair, on the floor, with a stool or cushions. And rising up as well. There's that thread through the crown of the head. And just running through a very quick body scan. Noticing the sensations in our head, our face. And wherever we encounter tension, just softening, allowing that to ease. Letting go of anything we don't need to hold on to. And down to the neck and the shoulders. Doing the same there. Flowing down into the arms and the hands. Noticing the sensitivity of the hands. Before coming back to the chest, the upper back. Following the breath down to the belly, the lower back. The groin and the pelvis. And the legs. And coming back to a broad awareness of the whole body, just noticing perhaps how our emotional state is appearing in the body, the different tensions, different energies. There's a bit of nervousness in the belly. Perhaps we feel a bit heavy. And perhaps we feel very light and clear. Doesn't matter particularly where we are, but just having that awareness of what state we're in, the emotions in the body, and bringing that forwards into the meditation. In the first stage, calling ourselves to mind, wishing ourselves well. As we're approaching the stages from that perspective of compassion as a kind of clarity of mind, just noticing, if we can, dwelling on the fact of our own desire for happiness, which is playing itself out in everything we do. Whatever's on our minds now, whatever worries, preoccupations, anticipations, whatever there may be, is also in one way or another an expression of that desire for happiness. Each time we wander off, coming calmly back, not getting caught up in narratives about the distraction. Moving on to the second stage, calling to mind a good friend, someone that we're just generally pleased to see. Again, we don't need to force any feelings towards them, just holding them in our minds as clearly as we can, however we want to do that, picturing them, imagining their voice, or that they're sitting nearby. As we're getting a sense of them, being aware that they also wish themselves well, just as we do. Everything they do comes from the same place, in one way or another, and outside of anything we may want from them or enjoy about them. They're feeling that need for happiness just as keenly as we do. May our friend be happy, may they be well, and may they be free from suffering. Moving into the third stage, calling to mind a neutral person, someone we don't feel strongly one way or the other about. And just wishing them well. Again, calling to mind as clearly as we can. Perhaps using a bit more imagination if we need to fill in the blanks. It's as if we can just trust that if we really knew this person, if we really saw them clearly outside of our usual preferences, well-wishing would just flow. If we feel we're really wandering a lot, we can always come back to the body, come back to the sensations, and then take up the intention to wish the neutral person well again. Still coming back each time we wander off. Now moving into the fourth stage, calling to mind a difficult person. So someone that we find awkward, harder to be around. Usual response to them is to find them unpleasant in some way. And we're not trying to suppress or avoid our usual responses, but it's as if the space of clarity that we're opening up, in which we are holding the difficult person, is so great that there is room for both our feelings and for the feelings of this other person. All the tangled impulses that make up their life, all of them at the root motivated by the same wish, just to be happy, the same one that we share. And perhaps holding that in our minds leads to some shift in our feeling towards them. Perhaps it doesn't. That's fine. Again, we can just trust that the more of this clear, compassionate mind we try to apply, the more loving kindness there will be in our experience, the more warmth. And moving forwards again into the fifth stage, calling to mind everyone we've already thought about, ourselves, the good friend, the neutral person, and the difficult person. Bringing them all into that expansive, emotionally open mind. Taking note of our different responses, also how much we have in common. All of us are moving towards happiness, seeking happiness, as if we were all moving towards some place of safety, even though we imagine that place to be different. May we all be happy, may we all be well, may we all be free from suffering. From there, allowing whatever sense of well-wishing we might be experiencing, and in any case, that clear, expansive mind that we've been trying to use, using that quality of awareness and just opening it out even further beyond those four specific people towards everyone else, and not only the people but all other sentient life of whatever kind we believe to exist or aware of existing on this world or on any others. And again, we don't need to force feelings. It's as if we are just attuning our minds, tuning our awareness to what is really the basic fact of life. Wherever there are living things, there are beings seeking happiness. May we live as much in accord with that as we can. And may all those beings find happiness. And then letting go of that intention, coming back to the body, back to that broad awareness that we started with. Just taking note of any changes. As we relax our intention to practice, just sitting for a few more moments without any intention at all. And in another way, we're still viewing ourselves from that place of expansive receptivity. Here we are. And that's enough. We don't need to judge ourselves. If distraction arises, just feeling the different urges at play. And finally, as we draw the meditation to a close, I'm going to ring the singing bowl the final time. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes and draw things to a close. Okay, well, thank you very much for joining me. Yeah, that was a positive one for you. Yeah, so by all means, that's something to experiment with if you come to the practice again in the future. Yeah, I find it especially helpful if as a sort of antidote to bringing too many sort of expectations to meditation. Sometimes that can really get in the way. We sort of feel we need to come out with some sort of emotional outcome, and actually just thinking in terms of just seeing things as they are, Partly it brings the usual kind of distortions that are present into focus, but it also sort of yeah, just put me into a sort of state of mind where I'm not so bothered by yeah, by trying to reach some particular sort of to have some particular feeling. Just sort of I'm trying to line myself up with how things are, and in a way you can't that can't be forced, and also it's not, things will continue to be as they are whether you do it or not, and that's somehow I find that comforting actually. Yeah, so that's something to play around with. So a few final announcements. So we've got an introductory course coming up on the 10th. That is Tuesday in, Tuesday in 2 weeks' time. Yeah, I'm going to be on it. A number of other people are. So if you have been looking to sort of get into what we do at the centre, or you just want a bit of a refresher, then the information for that is in the video description. There's a link to the website. There's also a follow-on course. So if you've already done an introductory course, there is a follow-on course coming up as well. The links for that are on our website, nottinghambuddhistcentre.org. Yeah, so if you have already been through an introductory course and you want to go a bit deeper, then yeah, by all means come along to that. That's yeah, the details you'll find on the website. That's with Rachel and Karen Varcher, who usually do Fridays. They do the Friday drop-ins. Yeah, and then the final thing just to say is if you can donate to us, then please do. Yeah, again, the links for that will be in the video description underneath. And yeah, we're still very much relying on your generosity. It was sort of coming towards the end of the year, and we're actually looks like the things are about to sort of lock down again a bit more in Nottingham. So yeah, there's absolutely no way we can receive support from people in person. So yeah, we're absolutely dependent on people like yourself to continue doing what we're doing. So if you do appreciate this and you are in a position to contribute, then please do. Yeah, it'd be wonderful. If you're also engaging with us regularly or wanting to donate more regularly, it's amazing for us if we've got standing orders or recurring donations, which is also really easy to set up in the using the same donation link. Yeah, just if we know that we've got the same, you know, either coming in a month or something, it makes a massive difference to what we can sort of plan. Yeah, we've got lots of very exciting plans. Yeah, for things to come in the future, but I'll talk about that another day, I think. Yeah, so thank you very much, and I hope to see you again soon. Please go well. I'll yeah, see you another one in a week or two.